The Seahawks take care of the Falcons in the hashtag Let Russ Cook debut. The Mariners and A's struggle to breathe trying to play baseball. And the Storm take the number 2 seed heading into the WNBA playoffs. Let's take it around the sound. Welcome to episode 2 of Around the Sound, or welcome back, I should say, if you guys were able to tune into episode 1. Thank you for all the support that I got on episode 1 of Around the Sound, and I couldn't wait to come in here and record episode 2. If you haven't already, follow me on Twitter, keep up with me at @ThePeytonThomas, or follow the Instagram for this podcast, which is at Around the Sound Seattle. The audio version of this podcast available wherever you get your podcast. But if you want to watch the video version, be one of those people out there, and I'm pointing at the camera right now, go search up PTOM Media on YouTube, PTHOM space media on YouTube. All of the episodes will be posted at the same time as the audio version of the episodes to that YouTube channel, so you can watch it however you prefer, audio or video. Make sure you're following the Instagram that I just mentioned at Around the Sound Seattle, because we will have a Q&A opportunity for next episode. If you want a question answered, you have something about one of the teams or something in the region, something relevant that you want answered, I'll have an opportunity for you guys to submit those questions on the Instagram before next episode. Next episode is slated for Saturday, so at some point before then, I'll post something, an opportunity for you guys to be able to ask questions. Let's start with the Seahawks. Took care of the Falcons in week 1. We saw Russ cook. I think he finished 31-35 on the day with plenty of passing yards and 4 touchdown passes. He had as many touchdown passes as he did incompletions the entire game, which in the NFL is extremely, extremely impressive. But what team was that? That was a completely different Pete Carroll team than we have ever seen, than we are used to seeing at all. We saw creativity in the play calling. We didn't see him try to establish the run right off the bat, but let's recap what I wanted to look out for this week. Things that I had mentioned in episode 1 that really came to fruition. I wanted Russ to keep the ball. I wanted to see some quarterback keepers fake the handoff and take off the other way, and we saw that in the first quarter. We saw him kind of take an inside seam. Tyler Lockett was on the outside, and that had most of the attraction from the defense because they thought he was the one that was eventually going to get the ball. Russ kept it, scrambled for a first down, and it was like the gates of heaven opening. I was giddy when I saw this play. It's not just about the first down. This specific play was much, much bigger than that because Russ looked quick. Russ looked almost like a running back. It almost looked like a vintage 2012 Russell Wilson running there for the first down. And that's huge, because that shows that Russell Wilson still has the ability to turn it and run upfield, especially if teams in the league know that the Seahawks are looking to involve him more in the running game. Quarterbacks are going to have to start accounting for Russell Wilson's running ability yet again on every single down. And that's not really something that defenses have had to account for since probably 2015. I think since then, they've phased out Russell's running ability. His running numbers have been down in the last 3 or 4 years compared to the first 3 or 4 years of his career. And this game, that run, I think it showed that the Seahawks are willing to run with Russell on occasion, which means defenses will have to account for him. And he's very, very capable of still outrunning defenders. It means that you can't just assume that a D tackle is going to be able to keep up with him. You can't put some big guy on the line and assign him to try to stop Russell Wilson on a QB spy. Back off the offensive line and try to watch the quarterback. It's not going to work. You're going to have to put a linebacker or a safety on Russell Wilson. And when you assign a linebacker or a safety onto Russell Wilson, there's only 11 players on the field. When you have 10 of them playing in comparison to 11, if you have one sole defender that has to focus on the quarterback's running ability, you're going to open up more options in the running game. You're going to open up more options in the passing game. And overall, your offense is probably going to be more productive. I wanted to see the offense score and be aggressive in the first half to play the game from ahead, and perfection. We saw total perfection. We saw touchdowns on the first 2 drives. I can't really remember the last time I saw that. Normally we see a start slow, try to establish the run game, and I think the Seahawks threw on 7 of their first 11 plays to start off the game. Since when have we seen that? I can't remember another Seahawks game where we've had that sort of stat to talk about, and it really was effective. I mean, we saw that in Russell's stat line. We saw that with the final score, just how many points the Seahawks were able to put up. I would say that the weakest part of that offense was still the O-line. Russell does have plenty of weapons. We know that. We know that Russ is capable of getting it to his weapons. The Seahawks O-line did allow 3 sacks and several other pressures throughout the game, but Russ was able to make up for it with his playmaking ability. But I do think that a little bit more protection for him certainly wouldn't hurt. Like I said, he's able to be a magician. He's able to make plays out of nothing. But when Russ isn't pressured, I feel like he's more comfortable back there. We can keep him a little more protected. A better O-line isn't going to hurt anybody. I really wish Seattle could have figured this hashtag let Russ cook thing out 5 years ago. I feel like after the 2014 Super Bowl loss, I think that was when the era really shifted in Seahawks, in the way that the Seahawks offense played, because that's when Russell Wilson started to get older and started to run less. And when he started to run less and you would establish the running game, it was very, very predictable what we were going to do. When Marshawn Lynch was still here and after. When Marshawn Lynch was still here, it was Marshawn Lynch up the middle. After he was here, after he left, it was Thomas Rawls right up the middle. And it was predictable. And I think that now the Seahawks have finally figured out that you don't have to establish the run game to find success with your offense. And I'm really, really shocked that it's taken them this long. But I think if you're a Seahawks fan, you have to be really happy that they finally figured it out. And I think you're in store for a very entertaining season offensively. I think this is now a team that it's offensively oriented, not defensively oriented. In the 2013-2014 season, it was the defense wins championships. It was the Legion of Boom. It was a young Bobby Wagner that was dominating the NFL, dominating teams defensively. The team has shifted now, and the onus of this team really, really relies on the offense. It's the offense that has their front foot forward, and you're going to have many games like this season where the Seahawks are going to score in the 40s, and they're going to beat teams that are scoring in the low 30s, but that's okay because you know that this offense is very capable of going out every week and scoring 40-plus points. Defensively, I said that I wanted to see some more blitzes. The Hawks blitzed by sending 5 or more rushers at the quarterback 30% of snaps during the game. I thought that we showed them some different formations. I thought that we put Jamal Adams in a place to succeed. We sent him in different places on the line. We sent him on a blitz sometimes, dropped him off. He had one crucial sack in the second quarter, Jamal Adams. And man, Jamal Adams is a different breed. He is a heck of a player. I mean, the energy that he brings to this team defensively, it looks like he's just single-handedly motivated every other player on the field when he's out there. And he looks like he absolutely loves being able to play in this system and play for this team. And it's really fun to watch. It's really fun to watch Jamal Adams playing out there with the utmost confidence. You can tell that he's already built bonds and relationships with the other players on that defense. And it looks like he just got out of a bad relationship with the Jets, and he's starting to live it up with his new partner in the Seahawks, because it looks like he's out there partying. He's having such a great time. You could tell after the sack. You could tell after every time he gets a tackle. Every time somebody gets a big tackle, he's right there, the number one cheerleader. And you love to see that sort of energy from your defense. And it breeds being able to stop the opposing offense on big plays. And I think we saw that. The Falcons were 0-4 on fourth down conversions, and that's really what tilted the game in Seattle's favor defensively, was the Falcons not able to pick up any of those fourth downs. They were all turnover on downs. An amazing ability by the Seahawks defense to show up in big moments. But, I mean, Seattle gave up plenty of points in this game. Part of that was attributed to the late onside kick and the weird, there was a garbage time touchdown in there, but Matt Ryan had 450 passing yards. Julio had 150. Ridley had 133. I was sad about Calvin Ridley, mainly because I put him on my bench in fantasy, and he scored 30-some points, so I wasn't very happy about keeping him on my bench. I didn't think that he would be such a focal point in this game, but I guess I should have known that when I drafted him, or hoped for that when I drafted him. Seattle didn't stop them from scoring a decent amount of points, but they did mostly keep things in front of them. I felt like the secondary was able to put sort of a cloud coverage over Julio Jones and over Calvin Ridley to avoid quick strike touchdowns, to avoid huge one-play touchdowns by the Falcons. And how about that massive forced fumble after the Falcons' fake punt? I think that is built on top of the 0 for 4 on fourth down plays, is the Falcons tried a fake punt. It was a direct snap to somebody who was in front and to the right of the punter in a normal punting formation, and direct snap to that player. I'm not sure who it was for the Falcons, but went to run for the first down. He actually did pick up the chains. I think he was a good 2 or 3 yards in front of the first down marker when he fumbled the ball. So had the Seahawks not been able to punch that ball out, the Falcons would have kept the ball. So a huge momentum swinger there when the Seahawks were able to get that fumble, obviously for the field position gain, but getting the ball back as well. The fake punt and taking risks. I mean, speaking of the Falcons' fake punt, how about taking risks? The Seahawks 4th and 5 on the Falcons 38 right after halftime, and this was the shot play to DK Metcalf where Russell dropped back 4th down, looks up for DK Metcalf, and you don't really want to punt in that situation, being on the Falcons 38. That would be a 55 or 56-yard field goal, it's just long enough where you don't really want to kick it. It's probably worth it to try to pick up the chains and get a touchdown, get 7 points out of that drive. So Pete Carroll, aggressive. When I saw that 4th and 5, I expected the punt team to come out. I fully expected the punter to come out, and we were going to try to pin him deep. But Pete, I think, did the right thing here, and I think he played aggressively. The play call, I'm not sure if it was designed to be a shot to DK Metcalf. That ended up what it was, and it's just so fun to watch Russell and DK connect, because when Russell puts the ball right in the breadbasket for DK Metcalf, and DK Metcalf jumps perfectly, makes the grab on one of those shot plays, it's an important play of the game. I mean, if DK drops that, it's a turnover on down, so it's an important play. You knew he was going to come up with it, and you almost feel bad for the DB in that situation, because Russell Wilson's going to throw a perfect pass. DK Metcalf is a monster of a human being physically. You feel like you would have no chance, I feel like, in that situation, and I feel for the defensive back of the Atlanta Falcons that had to play DK defensively. I didn't think that the secondary for the Atlanta Falcons was very particularly impressive. I think that is one part of the defense that Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson were able to take advantage of. The onside at the end did make the game a little bit closer than it should have really been. I know that they threw a pick after that, but it still made the game slightly nervy at the end, but I think the Seahawks were comfortably in control for the majority of that game. And it's what I talked about. It's winning the game before the fourth quarter and then sealing it in the fourth quarter. It's not establish the run in the first 2 quarters and then if you get behind, have to play from behind, which is what the Seahawks have done the last 5 years. This was a totally different scheme. It was a totally different game plan. And most importantly, it was an entirely different mentality from the Seahawks. Get ahead, start with the creativity, and then lock it up. And I think that they were able to lock it up. I think after that DK Metcalf touchdown on the 4th and 5, I think the Seahawks looked pretty comfortable after that. They were able to get the ball back, and they never really looked back from that moment. Atlanta never looked super threatening. Next week in Foxborough against the Patriots, it's going to be a tough game. I think Cam Newton is destined for a bounce-back year. He's in a much better system. He's got a better coach, Bill Belichick, and the Patriots will continue to be tough as long as Belichick's there. Whether Belichick's doing it legally or if he's cheating, the Patriots seem to always be a very good team. Belichick's a very smart coach, one of the best the NFL has ever seen, but the Patriots are missing some huge pieces. Brady left. I know Gronk was a shadow of what he was in the last few years, but he's also officially gone. And they also had many role players, many people in the trenches opt out due to COVID-19. They had most in the league with 7 different players opting out due to COVID-19. So this is a flipped Patriots roster almost. There's a lot of new pieces all over the place for the Patriots. They played a rebuilding Dolphins team in week 1. They were able to take care of the Dolphins, but that's not really how we can gauge the Patriots. This week 2, this is the major test for the Patriots to show the NFL whether they're still relevant and they're still competitors in the AFC, or if they're starting to slip now that Tom Brady's gone. Is the era over for the evil empire, the New England Patriots? I think Seahawks fans are hoping for a similar game to what they saw in week 1, and I think that was Pete's plan going into week 1, was to play that sort of game. It's not quite a shootout, but it is relying on your offense to score 30, 40 points a game. And I think Pete at this point knows that Russell's capable of commanding the offense when he's given the creativity in the first quarter in comparison to late in the third quarter or the fourth quarter. And I think that we're going to go into the game against the Patriots with a similar game plan and a similar mentality, the let Russ cook mentality. That's what I'm going to call it in the 2020 season. So far, I like what I'm seeing, and I think that from a Seahawks perspective, this is what you wanted. You wanted something different. You wanted something to shake up. You wanted the Seahawks to you knew that they had to change something, because the last 4 or 5 years, ever since 2014, they never really looked that threatening to get back to a Super Bowl. It was just they were something short, and I think this might be it. It was that creativity. It was the fact they weren't willing to get up and dominate games in the first half and then put them away in the second half or put them away in the fourth quarter. Always was playing from behind. Now, I think this is a new era. Let's talk about the Mariners a little bit. We had a doubleheader against the A's on Wednesday. Came back in Game 1. They were down 5-0, came back to win that game 6-5. Game 2, lost 9-0. Overall, besides the massive run differential, I think that going one-on-one on the night, I think from a Mariners point of view, is not that bad. As of tonight, right now, the Mariners are sitting 1.5 games back of the Astros with 12 games to play. So definitely in the hunt there. I know that it's kind of a reality check for Mariners fans when they hear 1.5 games back of the Astros with less than 2 weeks worth of games to play. It's like playoffs. We weren't expecting to make the playoffs this year. We were supposed to be a selling team. So impressive that they're even that close. 3 of those last 12 games are at home against the Astros, and that series will be the real teller. The Mariners have the Giants coming up, and then the Padres, followed by the Astros, and that'll be the big one. Kalu's catch to Rob Laureano in Game 2, I think it was. Wow, what a catch that was. Kyle Lewis seems to do something absolutely spectacular every night, and the little video capture compared to what Griffey did in 1990, I'm not sure who posted it, but I think I saw it on Twitter, of Kyle Lewis's rob, and it had the commentary with it, and then the call from Dave Niehaus of Griffey doing it in 1990, and they made the same sort of jump. The ball was in sort of the same spot as far as distance it was above the wall, and so it's fun to watch. It's fun to make those comparisons of Kyle Lewis to the kid, to Ken Griffey Jr. And man, it's so fun watching Kyle Lewis on a nightly basis because, like I said a little bit ago, he seems to do something special every single night. And it's really, really brought a new kind of energy to the Seattle Mariners. After the game, however, is when sort of the PR controversy started. Both the A's and the Mariners, several players from I think both locker rooms, started complaining about the air quality, obviously with all of the fires and all of the smoke in the Pacific Northwest. I'm not currently in the Pacific Northwest, but I have plenty of family in the Pacific Northwest, and I heard from many different people that it's really unsafe outside. The air quality index has shot through the roof. So if you can, stay safe, stay inside, and I really don't think the game should have been played. I don't know the exact threshold. If Major League Baseball had a rule for if the air quality was above a certain number, they don't play the game. I'm no scientist, but watching that game, you could see the smoke on the broadcast. It certainly didn't look healthy, and it certainly wasn't a very good look for the league, especially when you had A's players. I think you had Luzardo, who was the starter from Game 1. He said after the game that he felt like he couldn't breathe. Mike Minor was also complaining about the air quality. It's a tough year. I mean, you have COVID, and then you have all the civil unrest and police brutality following that, and now you have the smoke. I really can't wait for 2021 to try to put at least some of this stuff behind us, try to find solutions to some of these things, but man, the smoke. I mean, it's tough for Major League Baseball, especially when you're this close to the end of the season. I'm sure Major League Baseball is looking at it and going, please, can we just get the rest of these games over with? Can we just finish the regular season and get done with this 60-game little experiment and then look forward to next year when everything should be back to more of a normal state in the world? Giants at Mariners on Tuesday was postponed. I don't think we've had any word yet on the game on Wednesday. The game on Tuesday was postponed until Thursday. The Mariners were supposed to have an off day on that Thursday before starting a series at home against the Padres on Friday going through Sunday. If the game is postponed on Wednesday to Thursday, we'll probably see another doubleheader on Thursday with 2 7-inning games. If those games are postponed on Thursday, if the quality's still bad on Thursday, that's when we're going to start to have some schedule jumbling. We're going to start to have some issues because at that point you might have to push it onto the tail end of the season. And the problem for Major League Baseball is if we push too many games to the end of the season, you're going to have teams that continue to play games at the end of the season for 4 or 5 days, while other teams that also made the playoffs have been sitting around at home for 4 or 5 days. And I feel like as a baseball team, 2 days of rest is good, but any more than that, I think it can throw starting pitchers off their rhythm. If they're on a 5 or 6 day schedule, whatever that schedule is, I think that more than 2 extra days can really throw off that rhythm, and it could shake things up in the playoffs. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. Mariners 1.5 games back out of the playoffs. We'll probably see them back in action tonight, maybe tomorrow. It depends how the air quality and how the MLB deal with the situation. Wanted to give a special mention to the Storm, who just wrapped up their regular season play. They lost to the Aces, and that knocked them out of the number 1 seed. They're now sitting back in the number 2 seed. However, all the experts for the WNBA still seem to tip the Storm to win the title, to win the championship at the end of the year. A note from the game, Brianna Stewart and Sue Bird were both rested by a coach's decision. Probably a thought was willing to let this game slip and falling back into that number 2 seed, but enabling those 2 big major pieces to get a little bit of rest before the playoffs. And still, even without those 2 players, Seattle only lost to the Aces 86-84. Not too big of a deal. Staying in that 2nd seed means that you still get the bye into all the way into the semifinal round in the WNBA playoffs. If you're not familiar, the 5 seed will play the 8 seed, the 6 plays the 7, and then the 2 winners will move on to play the 3 and 4th seeds. After that game, both of those rounds are single elimination. After the 3rd and 4th seeds play their games against the respective remaining teams, they move on to play the number 1 and the 2 seeds in the semifinals. So we'll have to watch and see those 3rd through 8th seeds play to determine who both Seattle and Las Vegas will play in the semifinals. That's pretty much all I got for you guys today. If you like Around the Sound, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Tell them you like me. It really helps me out if you guys leave a 5-star review if you are listening on Apple Podcasts. Again, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Keep up with all the stuff I'm involved in at the Peyton Thomas. Check out Instagram at Around the Sound Seattle. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, we will have a Q&A opportunity in the coming days on that Instagram account, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you get your questions in if you want some stuff answered on Saturday's show. On Saturday's show, we'll also have a preview of Week 2, Seahawks versus Patriots. We'll see the Mariners inch closer towards that Astros series. I think that's the series that's going to be the real teller going down the stretch here. We'll know whether they were able to play the Giants on Wednesday and Thursday, or if those games will be pushed back until after the season's over. And that's pretty much all I got. So stay tuned to Around the Sound. We'll have another episode on Saturday. Thank you guys for listening.